make me a giant head on the screen like that?
You are a giant head.
I wouldn't get rid of
I am the great and powerful Oz.
All right, well, you can, there's not really, that's not going to show very well.
All of you be to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
All right, so let's see, they should be up there. What are we looking at here?
You made him a little head now.
No.
These are small.
Yes.
Is there a player, am I missing the future, or are we just going to talk about the future?
Just use the 2020 slide from the keynote.
2020 from the keynote.
Yeah, because I didn't bother making the future. Yeah, because I'm lazy. So while he's bringing that up, sorry I didn't make it back to air. I'm doing other stuff and I didn't make it back.
You don't love us anymore!
It's totally true. So by the way, I'm still working. So there's a good chance that in the middle of this I'm going to get called away and have to do something else. But I know, suck. But I'm definitely going to be back for the dance party because the thing I'm doing it has a hard stop. So, yeah.
Where's it at?
It's under your chair.
All right, so we're going to try and let Starr talk a little bit here. So episode 2 and more.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, we covered this in the keynote, but, you know, so this was a request for us to have a panel about the future. To be very transparent with you guys, you know, we always try to stay very agile and flexible. So as far as plans beyond, you know, the next year, there's not really anything concrete. So really our future plans are really more about the next year. You know, we talked about, actually if you go back one slide, which would be Q4. You know, we talked about this in the opening panel. So, you know, reminder of things we're going to be working on, you know, giving you the ability to do NBC dialogue with Eagle Writer, so a first round of that. We're hoping to get live by the end of the year. A first phase of Lua integration. Chris can talk about both of those. I know he's talked about those in multiple things so far. I'm not sure if we want to talk about that some more, or do people feel like we covered that in depth enough? We can certainly answer more questions about that.
I could give a quick rundown on because I've been talking a lot about phase 1, but I can talk about phase 2 and 3, just so people can understand. Again, that's one thing we're trying to do, is trying to look at rolling things out. You guys know how we work, where when we get things done, we put it out to you guys, but we're very incremental. When I talk about the phases, these are things I want to try and wrap up, that I'm trying to think of these as chunks, and I kind of broke these down into how we're going to develop these things and kind of the different challenges in each one of the things. That's whenever you're working on new systems, the things you try to look at is you try to analyze, you try to figure out the risks, and you try to, you know, base things around the risks, because a lot of stuff is, you know, it seems easy until you do it, and then you hit the risky part. You always try to prototype the risky part first. So I kind of broke things down based on that. So the phase 1 integration is, as I've been mentioning, that's really just being able to read scripts, you guys be able to write scripts, and us exposing values to. And this is kind of the read-only mode is kind of what I call it. You can output stuff, you'll be able to output stuff, but anything you send, it will only be sending it to your local screen. You will not have a way to send things to other people's screens. You will not have a way that you can execute a skill. You will not have a way that you can do, you know, a lot of the different stuff that you probably want to do and you think you can do, but phase 1 is really going to be just your local screen. And the reason for that is, again, that's the low risk area. That's the part that I feel we can get in and get functional that adds 80% of the coolness of it to you guys. It opens up a lot of stuff to you guys and lets you solve a lot of your own problems. So I'll get that live quick, and that is pretty low risk if I keep it so you can't execute skills, if I keep it so you can't send stuff to other people. You'll be able to send through Lua, you'll be able to send stuff to, like, you know, even like the Discord server or something like that, you can do that type of hookup, but you won't be able to send stuff to other people or to the server. That's all local, putting stuff on your own screen, reading stuff. You can write files to your own screen, but you won't be able to send to other people. So phase 2, and that's going to be the simple text. There'll be some ways you can output stuff. There'll be a Lua window you can output to. You've got your guild, you've got your combat button. This is on the top chats. There's going to be another one that will show up that will be a Lua option. So you'll be able to pull a tab out and call that your Lua tab if you want to. And that's where, like, you write a Lua script that's tracking your combat. You can have it like every 30 seconds, say dump my DPS or dump the party DPS or stuff like that, whatever you want to do with your Lua stuff. So that's how you can get output to it. There will also be a way that you can write to an XY on screen stuff. So if you want to put stuff on screen, you will be able to do that. Local, that'll just be kind of like you've seen my debug text in when I've done stuff in the editor when I mouse over stuff and I get ugly, yucky stuff, but functional, just not pretty. So phase 2 Lua is all that. Now that we've got the kinks worked out of that, getting it so you guys can actually do a few more simple things of loading graphics, loading JPEGs, and giving you a few hooks into things like mouse clicks and stuff like that, where you can actually hook mouse clicks so you can hook, and we may get the mouse clicks into the first part. We may have that as something there. It may also be that we just are hooking into events and having more event hooks. But phase 2 is you'll be able to start actually making pretty UI and make Joaquin Wizard Smoke his life a lot better and make your lives a lot better. So you can go and start making some of the stuff that you think is ugly right now. You guys can start redoing some of that stuff.
Replacing all the icons.
Like, yeah, replacing icons and things like that if you want to. Replacing, windows or even possibly even like your own chat windows.
Movable health bars.
Movable hot bars. Make your own little health bar, your own little, guild, whatever.
Big game browser.
If you can get to work in Lua. For those who don't know, Lua is a very small, compact language in terms of the script to interpret it. That's why it is popular among for embedding and things. So we looked at Python. There's a chance we could add Python support. I'm sure if there's programmers out here, they probably see a few fists go out and people. Python is a better language. It's a lot tougher to implement and has a lot more ways to, a lot more rope to hang yourself. It also makes it tough because one of the reasons for Lua is because there are going to be some modifications we'll be making to the code just in terms of making sure we can control what you guys are doing and setting up, our own custom hooks. Some of that we can do now, but there's going to be some things we're going to want to limit how much time you can spend in Lua. That's a lot easier to do in Lua. It's a lot more compacted. So phase 2 again that's the pretty phase. That's the loading stuff. The goal for that, and again, this is where it's really fuzzy because we have not looked into all the functions. There's a few people who have done this out there, so we know kind of ballpark, but we're looking for that in possibly second quarter of next year. We will have that to a point that it's really usable. In terms of loading the image and putting it on screen, that's the easy part, and we may open up some of that stuff to you guys before then, but that's phase 2. So phase 3 is where it gets really scary. So phase 3 is where we're looking at doing some of the things that other games have done, like WoW did this. They did it originally, and they had to undo it and redo it 97 different ways, trying to keep players from abusing it, which is what I've been calling this other stuff, read only. This is where you get into the read-write, where you can actually execute some stuff. That's one that we can't rush because that is where we have to be really careful about what we open up to you, how we open it up to you. How much execution stuff we can give you. One of the things WoW did was for a while they actually had some stuff where one button gives you one execution. So again, that's one of those things at first they didn't have it, and of course everybody wrote macro programs to do everything. Then slowly they evolved and they had it to one button. If you guys recall, not sure how many people played WoW from the start and watched the evolution of all that stuff. Probably some tech people did, but they actually, as soon as they said, okay, that's totally broken out of what we're thinking. We're going to make it so if you press a button, you can execute one command. So then everybody came out with the one-button fighter, which was basically a fighter that all you had to do was hit F over and over again, or whatever button you hooked it up to. Sit there and hammer that button, and it would always do the right thing. If you needed heal, it would do a heal. If you needed time to do your cooldowns done or whatever, you do it. So that's the type of stuff. If there's a lot of gotchas that other people have walked through that we're trying to make sure to pay attention to, that we're going to try not to reproduce their mistakes. We're going to make totally new mistakes. So,
That's the attitude.
but that's one of the things, that's why when I say that's phase 3 in the scary phase, because there are a lot of ways, there's a lot of gotchas, and we need to make sure you guys can't, like, you know, if we didn't have some really strict controls on things, and, you know, you guys can do things like not just, build your own bots and macros and stuff in there, which I know would be fun, but isn't great long term. You guys could also do things that basically turn into like distributed denial of service attacks on our servers through an intentional, like, I'm scraping everything I can find. I'm taking every bit of information and sending back, responding to it instantly. So we've got to be really careful on that, and that's why I call that phase 3. We're going to get there, but that's going to be one that we'll probably roll out in tiny little chunks. Hopefully in the second half of next year is when we'll be at that point where we can start rolling some of this out. Many of these things we'll probably get as we go along the way. If I see something that is trivial, safe, and easy, and I understand it, then I would probably do it sooner rather than later. But those are kind of 3 big phases I've kind of identified that each have their own risks and challenges with them. So just so when you see phase 1, that's, you know what that means. Phase 1 is you guys will be able to do a lot of stuff. You just won't be able to do most of the graphics stuff yet, or the execution stuff yet, just because that comes with a lot of risks. All right, back to you, Starr.
All right. So then, like we discussed in previous panels, episode 2, we're going to lay out the overworld. That'll be the continent and maybe some of the islands surrounding it, and also where, while we won't actually build the cities or the adventure areas, we'll at least know where those major areas are so people know where to put their pots. And then holiday content, so Krampus will come back, snow-covered trees, so finally people who live in alpine areas will have trees they can put down, and then other recurring holiday items. So that's stuff we're going to be working on for the end of the year. And then if we go to the next slide, then of course we have lots of stuff we want to do in 2020. The biggest one, of course, is going to be episode 2. So that's the new areas, new player, places for people to put their new player-owned towns. The biggest one and the biggest change from how we did episode 1 is our current thinking is we're probably going to leave all the player housing in the player-owned towns and not mix NPC areas and player housing. The work we did with the outskirts seemed to indicate that player experience is much better when we don't mix the adventuring and quest areas that we build with player housing. It seems to be a lot less confusing for users. Performance is better, et cetera, et cetera. Not mixing the chocolate and peanut butter seems to work very well. And giving players complete control of those environments versus mixing areas that can't be controlled by the players with areas that can be controlled by the players just seems, that experiment we don't think was a success. So our current direction is leaning towards not mixing those two.
And when we've talked about in the past, we've had a few people who bring up some stuff like, well, but if they're player-owned towns, then what if there's no towns that want me? And I think what we've seen is just over and over again, you guys want people in your towns. I mean, it makes for a better community. And so my new answer for people when they express that fear is, if you find that you've looked around and you just can't find any town that will take you, you're probably a dick. That's probably about right, is that you're not going to find a town. So that's kind of where I think it is.
And we
Buy a town.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and this was one of the primary, or not one of the primary, but one of the drivers where we ended up overbuilding space for land for player housing when we launched, because there was such a large fear-based commentary from the player base about living in player-owned towns and about what if they don't want me, what if they kick me out, and this arbitrariness of it, and blah, blah. And we literally have not seen a single solitary case of a player unable to find a player-owned town to live in. And we've seen almost, and in fact, at least not reported to us, we've not seen a person kicked out of a town that was not, that for some random reason. We've seen no arbitrary eviction of a player from a player on tap.
And worst cases, they'll have to go back and live in episode 1, towns. There's still gonna be towns out there where NPC towns where you can live, just not in episode 2.
Yeah. So the whole fear of that player-owned towns would be bad experiences for players is completely unfounded. New quest and task system. We talked a little bit about this in the panel at the beginning of the day today, but this is directly tied to the ecosystem that's going to be for the ability for you, the players, to write your own NPC dialogue. So we're going to be using the same system. So as we implement that, that's going to be the same backend and the same system that's going to allow us to rewrite our own quest system to get to a much more stable place than the curve is. And then item history and item leveling. This one, we honestly would have loved to have done for episode 1 because we just think it's a really cool idea that your item can basically a piece of gear can level up and earn abilities and get a sword of skeleton slipping is the one we always talk about. And then expanding taming so that including having the tamers have control of their pet skills and be able to trigger those. I have player chest settings, but it's really doors and chests and things like that, and exposing more conditionals to those things. The example we give, public cache chests. Right now, it's you can put stuff in them for other people to have, but then it's kind of then the first person opens it, takes everything out of it. So being able to set rules about that, so you can you can only take one item out, or you have to put one thing in, and then you could take one thing out. So one in, one out, or being able to say if you're building a quest, say you can only open the chest with a certain key, or a door that'll only open if you have a scroll in your inventory. So again, things like that that players can build their own quests out of. Treasure map system, much like the one in UO where you get a treasure map and it says on where in the world a piece of treasure is, go find that. And then in-game achievement system with titles associated with it. We don't have anything like that. We sort of did a little bit with Steam's achievement system, but that doesn't display in the game, and we really didn't. We did a few achievements with Steam, but we really didn't explore that or do much with it. So we want to actually do something in the game. Since we have a lot of players, at least half of the players don't play through Steam, so they would never see the Steam achievements anyway. And again, none of that displays in the game, so it's useless, really. And then that's just for episode 2, and then there's a bunch of other stuff we want to do regardless of episode 2. Like we want to make player vendors a lot more useful, a lot more easier to use, especially for people who share vendors. So you can, and then more trophy data. So when we did fishing, we introduced the concept of the fish that you catch has a bunch of data with it, like where you caught it, who caught it, length. And that influences the scale of the actual fish itself and the trophy that you built from it. And so we want to expand that to be like the heads of the animals that you make trophies out of. We want to expand it to agriculture, so there's giant pumpkins that you can make with fertilizer. Property rating system, so give a thumbs up to property. New creatures, more tameables, new skills, new bosses. So that's just so lots of stuff to do, and that's not even a complete list. So I know Chris probably talked about a bunch of stuff he wants to do with combat in the combat panel too. So I didn't even include that in this list.
Yeah, like making dragons have to be more interesting.
Yeah.
Finish. Check.
Already done?
I did start. I did do, yeah,
I still need
visuals.
Yeah. So the summary of all this is that if you look at what we got done in the last 12 months, which was a ton of stuff, even though we're a small team. And I think I have a lot of confidence that we're still going to continue to generate a ton of content. And I think that there is no other game that offers the level of sandbox customizability that this game offers. No other game has an entire town, basically an entire scene that you can customize to yourself, right? That you can build your own town, that you can build the dungeon underneath it. You can have your own people who live in the town with you. They can all customize their spaces as well. They have their own dungeons underneath it. And we're only going to continue to expand that. While we also, the game then, in addition to that, has a bunch of adventuring spaces to go play too. So, there isn't a game that has the two of those things put together the same way, or to that. And yes, there are some bugs and there's some balance issues and things like that. But again, I don't think there's any game that offers anything like this to this level. So, and I have a lot of confidence that the team is going to continue to crank out more of this.
And since Starr's going to have to go at some point here, why don't we say questions that are just for Starr? I'm sure some people have some business questions that they're going to want to ask me.
Yeah, because I hear rumbling in the background, so I think I'm probably going to have to step away here shortly.
All right, I can take over from here, Starr, if you need to.
No, I want to answer some questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Microphone. I can repeat the question after you ask it.
Okay. Could you add taxidermy as a skill for crafting so you could actually have a full-size bear?
Ooh.
That's an interesting idea.
Because you should already.
We got the model.
We can make the models pretty quick.
Hey, that'd be a neat idea. He's hired.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the bear going,
Yeah.
Oh, and the question was, why don't we have taxidermy, which is making the full stuff thing rather than just a bear or whatever. So.
Yeah. So Damon, would we just need to take the animal model and put it in like a pose?
Yeah, you just do that. Or in some cases you might want to mount it, but in many cases it could just be stand on its own, like the bear making a mean face or a lion or whatever. Yeah, I think everybody sort of gets the idea on that.
That's awesome.
Obviously on the art
Lions
side,
now? When
it's,
did we get a lion?
Oh, yeah, that's coming.
I don't know if we have
He
one.
was just making examples.
All right, maybe we need a line. But anyway, the point is,
Yeah.
yes, I think that on the art side it's relatively trivial. It's just more like we would need to design out that skill system and implement it on the code side. Yeah.
And that type of skill, again, once we have patterns in place, it's pretty easy. And the only real challenge in that is going to be the art side of things. So I'm going to blame Damon if it doesn't get done.
I don't consider it a major challenge.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, taxidermy. Let's do it.
Added.
Excuse me, we have somebody who would like to call in, and they just don't know if they can join the Skype or not, if you have to call them.
Who would that be?
Lord British.
Lord British?
I don't think we know him.
Stranger danger.
Yeah. Does he have a
He's
ticket?
probably grooming us.
Does he have a
No
ticket?
picture? Oh,
Hello.
I just typed in too, Richard, so you don't have to feel new. That's good. There you go.
Don't feel too strange about it. I'm actually not that far away. I'm down in Houston, Texas. I think many of you knew I came down here to NASA planted it, or they didn't technically plant it. We dedicated it. It had already been planted, so we dedicated a tree in honor of my dear papa. And so I had a bunch of family and friends who were down here doing that.
Cool.
Indeed, but yes, glad I could join you. Sorry just only for such a small part of the total, but I was there at the beginning with the tours and the dinner, and skipped over the middle parts to be down here in Houston. But anyway, glad to be with you here now.
Well, while we have him on here, since some of you didn't get to go to the property tour with Richard, anybody have any questions for Richard? Oh, come on, guys.
Doesn't have to be a smart question.
Yeah.
What's the meaning of life?
Nothing. Okay, well, really, if you guys aren't gonna tell, I'm gonna tell Richard he should tell his DNA story.
Oh, yes.
No, I mean, my family history.
Oh,
story.
that's an
Family
interesting one.
history
Yeah,
story,
I like
yes.
that story.
Tell that one. That is very much a Richard story that only Richard would ever tell. I thought about telling it and I knew I'd mess it up.
You know, that's funny, because I agree. That's the kind of story I tell. I've been telling all my relatives that are down here in Houston, of course, as well. Which is, and yes, these are the kind of stories that I put in a, if I'd known this earlier, it would have been in my book, Explore, Create, but I didn't know it yet. But yeah, so most of you probably don't know that my mother was adopted, and never, only knew of her mother the name Thelma Clark. And so for many years, I was trying to track down who my mother's mother was. And I've been on all these genetic research sites like 23andMe and submitted by DNA, and I kept expecting someone who randomly popped up as a genetic relative. Surely some of those would be on my mom's side versus my dad's side, but literally in the 10 or 20 years, however long it's been since I did that, all relatives that have shown up by chance over on things like 23andMe have always been on my dad's side. And it was just kind of odd. And I still true to this day, by the way, none have popped up that were not related to my father's side. But since I was recently going through all my father's stuff back in Huntsville, where the end of my stepmom lived, I was inspired to go on Ancestry.com, which had a little hint of the data that it's been digging up off the now completely digitized universe that we live in out of some records, and it found a Thelma Clark that in the 1920 census was living in Enid, Oklahoma, which would have made her 19 years old at the time my mother was born, to be a pretty prime age for someone to give up a baby for adoption. So when like, okay, well, I must have found her. I must have found the right person at the right place at the right age to be my grandma, so to speak, my genetic grandma. And so I'm looking at this photographic image they have of the census, and so I'm going like, okay, well, what else does it tell me about Thelma Clark? The first thing that stands out is right after her name is the word inmate. And so, it's something
Like jail?
Inmate of what? And then I started looking up and down this page, and there's actually 3 or 4 pages, and every one on these sheets is an inmate. And so I looked at the top of the page to see an inmate at what, and it turns out to be the Oklahoma Institute for the Feeble-Minded. So now I'm going like, oh, this is a plot thickens. So what was she? Was she, just kind of, they would throw people in the hospital for all kinds of things they thought were, craziness, or, was this a true handicap, or, what is the world, what clues do I have as to what this place is like? And then, so I noticed things like, they list things like what languages do they speak, have they been to school, all these things about education, work abilities, their parents, etc. And so I noticed on the parents, like her parents are unknowable, whatever that means. Not unknown, unknowable. And then does she speak English? No. Does she speak Spanish? No. Does she speak at all? No. Has she been to any school ever? No. Can she read or write? No. Can she do any work? In other words, can she help out? All the other inmates are doing things like helping with laundry or helping pick up or clean up or doing something productive at the facility. And for her, the answer was no. And so suddenly you go, okay, well, this is a person who appears on paper here to be, as far as I can tell, really profoundly closed in, shall we say. But then you start thinking about it, you go like, wait a minute, if this person is so profoundly closed in, how in the world did they become pregnant at the age of 19? And then you look up the data on the Oklahoma Institute for the Feeble-Minded, and you realize that the female inmates and the male inmates are segregated in entirely different buildings. And so therefore, there's pretty much only one conclusion that you can come to on this discovery, which is she was non-consensually impregnated, and then they had to give that baby up for adoption. So that is likely who my grandmother was. And it turns out I was just in Enid to help be present at my father's induction in our Hall of Fame. And so it turns out we were literally less than a block away from both this institution and the graveyard, where it seemed like her likely grave, where she was buried at the age of 46, is also sitting. So in any case, I've finally got a little bit of thread of this mystery, and now I can go down through the employee records of the place and start to track down the perpetrator.
Good luck, Richard.
Yeah, to track down her.
All right. Now, does anyone have any questions? Yeah, follow that story now.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, I do.
Yeah.
What are Richard and Starr's roles going to be from now on?
What are Richard's and Starr's roles going to be from now on is the question.
Good question.
Well, let me just answer that one for myself too. So I think you guys know that the way I helped, I've always been the person who gets to help set the goalposts of what the project ought to become, including things like, of course, I've heard you all absolutely concur with me that cannibalism would be.
The hang up button down here. So
Mute.
And so, but no, those sorts of things, setting those goalposts are things I still have contributed, and they go into the backlog, and then usually sit there for years till these guys decide to give it some priority. And so, but the way I've always operated is as a player of the game, seeing what's going on, participating in live streams, participating in events, and then putting my feedback and goals into the Jira backlog. And so that's the way I've always operated. The project has always been run by the folks there in Austin from an operational standpoint. So my role is not really changing. In fact, as you guys have probably already been told, the changes we've recently gone through didn't happen recently. That actually happened much earlier in the year. So this is really just a public acknowledgement of the way it's been operating now for most of this year. We just had all the paperwork and other things to get through, which was doggedly slow, painfully slow.
Speed of business.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said
Chris.
speed of business.
that's David. Ignore him.
Let's continue.
All right, but in any case, so you shouldn't see much of any change in the way I've been doing stuff. Obviously, then I'm also involved in helping to edit book 2 and things of that nature. That's slowly coming along. Book 2 is actually in the hands now of the publisher, and we have some of the team members that have been going through to make edits, and the publisher also has a person who's been making edits, etc. I've been the person who's been working with the legal team and the business group that's been doing this rollover stuff. That's the same stuff we've done before. I should be able to help out on those same things going forward. So it's, you shouldn't see very much change in the way you see me related to the gaming community.
And humorously, of course, Richard has worked remotely for almost the entire project via robot and Skype and everything else, and then just it's been the last 8 months that everybody else on the team now works remotely as well. So we've actually all joined Richard, and we're in the same place he's at.
We don't all have like a bunch of robots.
Yeah.
Each of our
That was going to be my question. Do you all have robots now?
No, I have Maxine does a very good robot impersonation where she talks very monotone, but no, we do not have robots.
So just one comment, I just Googled it very quickly, and apparently Thelma Clark was arrested for cannibalism.
So on the boat the other night, Maxine told me that Richard owns the moon.
That's great. Yeah.
Close.
That's good.
Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, I had that side business. I wasn't really going to advertise that I was in that side business, but now that the leak is out.
I want to see you.
You can actually Google Richard owning the moon. It's okay. It's on. It may even be on Wikipedia for the moon for that stuff. So
That's right. Lord
It's a
Chris owns the moon.
I had a question.
Yeah,
You
I see that hand up
mentioned,
there, yeah.
you mentioned that you were in Houston and you were, your father was in the Hall of Fame at NASA?
Close. No, in about 2 weeks, maybe a month ago, I was in Enid, Oklahoma, where my father was being inducted into the Hall of Fame in Enid, Oklahoma. And today I'm down at NASA, where yesterday, it was supposed to be in the morning, then there was rain, some pushed in the afternoon, so it was really an all-day affair yesterday, where they have a grove of trees that is for fallen astronauts.
Yeah.
And so we dedicated a tree to him. It was sort of a sapling. They sort of plant them, not they know that people are going to periodically fall off the earth. So the tree had already been planted, but it's clearly the youngest of the trees. But at least it was established and will surely continue to grow. So we dedicated it. They put like a stone in front of it with his name. A few of us got to say a few words, and everybody got to put roses out, and we shoveled it of mulch and stuff like that. Kind of an homage to my papa.
Okay, looking up on the Escapists, it says in 1993, because he was rich, bored, and completely nuts, Garriott, aka Lord British, purchased the Soviet Union's Lunar 21 moon lander. So that's what they say about you. Rich, bored, and completely nuts.
We wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, what's funny is to be actually specific. Here is the claim that I actually asserted on part of the moon. So I think that no one would I think argue that the people that built, put, and operated that the lander and rover that's on the moon is an institute in Russia called Lavochkin. And the Lavochkin Institute, with the fall of the Soviet Union, was trying to raise money to stay in business, and that's why they sold off at auction Lunikod 2. They actually kept Lunikod 1, they sold Lunikod 2. So no one really doubts they owned it, and no one, I think, would object to the sale of that object to me. So first of all, I own something. So even the first statement saying that lets me say I'm the world's only private owner of an object on a foreign celestial body. That's enough. So so that's kind of fun. But I then think, by the way, there are international conventions that describe ownership of property or spaces, including in outer space. The United Nations recognizes that even just as a mathematically describable orbit around the Earth, which is orbiting the Sun, which is orbiting the galaxy, which is moving through the universe, just that spot in space you can effectively own as long as you're the first person to get there and have something there that's operating like a satellite. And as long as your satellite is operational there, you can keep it, you own it, and no one else can displace it. But if your satellite quits working and falls out of orbit, then it's free for somebody else to take. And so, interestingly, my rover that's on the moon is still, even though it can't rove anymore, it is still in use. It has special sets of instruments on the lander and on the rover. These sets of mirrors that are used by observatories to bounce signals off of, to do very, very accurate Earth-Moon distance calculations, so that people can look at the wobble of the moon and other aspects like that. And these instruments that are still in use means that it hasn't fallen out of use, and so therefore some claim can be asserted. The claims that I assert with that it goes like this. It says, I own the objects, the lander and the rover. I also claim the Earth they sit on, the dirt, the piece of the moon that they sit on top of. And so that just gives me, two very small patches of the moon. But then the next assertion comes that the rover has traveled about 40 kilometers tilling the soil with its wheels. And I claim that trackway. And what's interesting about that is that what that assertion comes from is that, again, if you were to go to a desert island, an unclaimed desert island in the Pacific, and plant a flag, you cannot claim the whole island. However, if you build a farm and put a fence around the farm and till the soil and grow some crops, that is considered you're utilizing that land, and so therefore you can assert ownership over the part of the land you are utilizing or utilized. And so since my rover tilled the 40 kilometers of its wheels, I claimed the 40-kilometer trackway. Then the final assertion is that it had cameras up about 6 feet high that were surveying to port, starboard, forward, and backwards of it. And so from the altitude of the soil at the trackway, if you go up 6 feet and as far as you can survey left and right visually, I claim that width of it too, which is probably, on average 2 or 3 kilometers wide. So a 2 or 3 kilometer wide trackway going 40 kilometers along the surface of the moon between Luna Cod 21, the rover, and Luna 2, the lander, is the part of the moon that I assert that I own.
Indeed.
You're kind of good.
What do you say about that?
You're nuts.
And there are private rovers now headed to the moon with the Google Lunar X Prize has brought a number of, there was an Israeli rover that tried to make a landing attempt on the moon and sadly did not make it. But the X Prize had $25 million from Google set up to give away to
That's pretty interesting though.
with 5 of that being given out only for accuracy of landing site selection. And as soon as that, so they intended previously to go back to a NASA previous spot or a Russian previous spot. And immediately both NASA and Roscosmos said, hey, Lunar X Prize folks, please do not go land near our spots because we think of them as sort of national monuments and we want to go back there ourselves first, and secure whatever the value before you yahoos go land your stuff nearby. And so I made it known to all the X Prize folks that, hey, if you go into my area, I would simultaneously pay you for photos, ground level photos of my stuff. But I will also charge you for utilization of my property. And so now I need to exchange, based upon our work on a foreign celestial body, and therefore assert both of our claims, increase the value of both of our claims.
He's a little cagey there, huh?
Well, does anyone else have any questions?
That's outstanding.
When are you gonna start working on a moon base?
Yeah, when do we get a moon base?
They want a moon base.
Oh yes, good question. You guys have to build that. I got the territory. You guys built the spot. Built the stuff.
Is that where it
We're not rich or we're nuts.
We'll get there.
I don't know. I'd say you guys are pretty good nuts. You're pretty well leading these nuts.
Nuts. Nuts.
You can't deny that.
Yeah,
True.
I'm nuts, but.
Well, does anyone have any future of shroud type questions of
Oh.
Richard? Because I will be afraid to answer a lot of stuff, whereas Richard just bowls right ahead and answers stuff he's not supposed to say.
Hey, ask him what happens to Portalarium then.
What's the question, please?
Ask him what happens to Portalarium then.
What happens to Portalarium then is the
Yeah.
question.
Nothing. The corporate entity remains unchanged. If Chris hasn't really described this yet, previously all of the employees of Portalarium were actually employees of something called Insperity. Insperity was the company that ran our payroll, taxes, medical, all that kind of stuff. And so all the expenses of Portalarium were increased by 25-30% per person, just by virtue of the fact that we paid a service to that company. Plus, Portalarium had people on payroll who were doing finance, accounting, etc. You guys might remember Sasha was our CFO, and that also had expenses that by making this move, we've reduced the expenses of the entity Portalarium and the cost to the game substantially. And so, but the structure of Portalarium still exists just as it always had. The employees are just now all no longer part of Insperity. We save all those fees. We don't have to have those other additional expenses. But as if the game continues to run well, then ultimately any money that they pay to Portalarium then goes back to pay Portalarium's stuff as well.
Question. So today at the end of the convention, when we do the accounting portion of it, and we show a profit, Lord British, Who do we make the check out to?
Portalarian. So Catnip is Portalarian. So yeah, so Catnip owns and controls the brand Portalarian. It's really just a structural change within, underneath, so to speak. And so it all, even though I know everybody, the Reddit trolls are out in mass, which we fully expected, of course. From a community standpoint, there should be little, frankly, no change of expectation or operation from a community standpoint.
Okay, next question, Richard. Would Catnip Games be considered a subsidiary of Portalarium like other businesses or not?
No, if anything, it's actually the other way around, but I wouldn't use that terminology either way. It's a separate company that has contracts to do business with each other.
So basically, it's Zeke again, Lord British. So basically,
Yes.
to sum it all up in layman terms, basically what Portalarium has done then has basically subcontracted Catnip Games to build the game for them.
I believe that is a very accurate description of the events, yes.
Yes. The IP got handed over.
Yeah, and by the way, it's even with the same people. The team hasn't shifted. It's the same. It's just the umbrella under which the work is getting done.
One additional question related to this. How does this affect those of us who are shareholders through the Seed Invest program?
I'm sorry, I heard the word shareholders, but what else was said?
How does this affect shareholders who are shareholders with the Seed Invest program?
They remain shareholders of Portalarium as they always have. And so all shareholders, this doesn't change the way shareholders would receive money from Portalarium should Portalarium distribute money. So that Portalarium remains an operating entity in the same way it always has. And as Zeke said, there's just now the operations of the game, et cetera, have now moved into this new entity, Catnip Games, but both still exist.
The correct answer to that is please contact tbailey@vlpc.com for full information.
I think we got it squared away.
Yeah. Yeah, I see you hand up. Go ahead.
Got a question for Damon. Is there going to be a catnip plant in the game?
Ooh, that's a good idea.
It is a good idea, and I don't have any problem with it if you wanted to make harvestable catnip. I don't have any idea what you would do with harvestable catnip.
The most powerful thing in the game.
I really don't mind making catnip. We'll just have to figure out what it's good for.
Did we ever add weed to the game? We had the speed weed?
I got a call.
I have no idea.
You should have it.
Have it make the wandering cats go
I'm not aware of
crazy.
that being a harvestable resource.
Yeah, have the
Any-
wandering cats go crazy.
Yeah, we gotta get cats in there for the cat.
I'm okay with making
Right,
catnip,
yeah.
and I'm even okay with making like a really goofy cat animation where the cat looks really happy and rolls around on the ground and it seems like it's playing with something invisible. Sure.
I swear to you, every time I fight my practice dummy, my cats go nuts. I have proven it. I'll be like, come down here, Zeke, and he'll come down to my basement, and the cats are all happy and everything, yeah. I start whacking on that dummy. Meow! I mean, they hiss up every time.
Combat mode.
Is that a program thing, or am I just nuts like Richard?
I have no idea. I know how my cat acts with catnip, so I would probably just,
I'm talking about in the game.
in the game, I mean, first we have to I can easily make the art. It's the hooking it up to me that's the risk. I don't know what it would do or.
Stuff it in your pipe and smoke it.
I'm sure we can come up with something.
Yeah, we have to put in something for sure.
We should probably get close to wrapping things up here. I know we're supposed to be near the end. I'll hang around and talk a little while afterwards, but I do have to get going pretty close to 5 to get home due to family obligations. So
Same here, and if anybody else has any more questions for me, I'm not going to be around too long, but I'd be happy to answer them. And I also like to encourage everyone to contact me if you have a really good idea for any props that you would like to buy in the store that don't already exist.
There's a thread going on that, I believe. Somebody here can probably forward that. to
Liz
us.
started that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What about new musical instruments like bongos and banjos?
Those are high effort items just because they would require new animations. I'm certainly not against it. And it would, but also again, require somebody to hook that stuff up.
And it's also one of those things, it's sound banks for those instruments. You can go and look, and of course you Google for them, it's like, oh yeah, these are like readily available. No matter which one we ever used, players hated them and said they sounded horrible, and so it's one of those things that it's a lot of effort to get those things sounding to a decent point. So it seems easy, but as he said, the animations for it is a little bit of work.
Yeah.
I mean, it would probably be fairly easy just to have, like, you can play anything and make it play banjo sound.
I mean, it would definitely, like, we've got the animations for like the lute, so yeah, making a banjo or some anything that you held in the same way that I'm requiring animations, that would be, having certainly no problem on the art side with that. It's more of a matter of, do we need to change the sound, and what does it take on the programming side to take that stuff up?
And that's pretty, and the banjo sounds pretty easy to just log into, so that one's not a bad one.
Do we know where Zeke is? Oh, question.
What about awareness items?
What about awareness items?
Awareness items.
Can you tell me?
What do you mean by awareness items?
Oh, okay, yeah, charity type items.
Yes.
We actually were just talking with Justin about that, and she'd probably give you some more information.
Yeah.
That's the person who had kind of been the contact point at Portalarium retired last year. And it kind of fell by the wayside, and that's, if you saw, Starr took down some stuff here recently. But some of that is we're going to move some of that stuff in the game. We're going to have it in game, but I think we're going to do some more awareness items, some more charity type raising stuff, because Justin says so.
Well, the only tricky part there is, right now we've simplified the store, the web store, down to where it mostly only just sells Kodos. And it might be that those things would have to go back onto the web store. I'm not certain.
And those are things also, they wouldn't have to go to the web store. The challenge with putting stuff in the Crown store, it's much actually easier for us, and it's better for you guys, quicker for you guys. The challenge is when you start talking percentage, like we said, 20% of sales goes to whatever. If the item is $10, we always know $2 goes to but when we put it in the Crown store, it's a percentage of what, because we don't know what you pay for crowns. Did you get those as part of a $100 purchase? Did you get it during the sale? Did you get those as a gift? Whatever. So we have to be careful on that and make sure that we have a fixed amount. So it may say, every purchase it's $2 for whatever, but we'll talk that out. That's one of those things that fell by the wayside that we should pick back up again. We just need to change how we're doing it so we can manage it a little bit better.
Yeah, I think we'd all be excited to present that stuff back.
Fireflies.
What about fireflies?
You have the little moths, around.
I would be happy to make fireflies, and I would immediately put that on the list. I think that's a great idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that already.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, guys. I've been summoned back in. Sorry, I had to step out real quick to check on our catering. Lord British, if you don't mind, stay on the line with us. All right, guys. We are just like moments away from concluding the Shroud of the Avatar International Convention. This became customary for me at the end of convention to give you guys an accounting of the money as a whole that you sent in, what it was spent for, and I'm pleased to announce, one, it was close. Guys, it was so close I was sweating bullets. But I am pleased to announce that we did again come in this year, Lord British, with a profit. So here is what I affectionately call butcher's bill. Every year I give an accounting of what was taken in and what was spent. And then at the end of that, we present Portalarium with the proceeds, the profits. This year we took in a gross amount of $6,649.09. The net amount after paying the tax or the fees and everything on Eventbrite came to $6,331.61. The January Eventbrite fees were $151.19. March Eventbrite fees $106.76. The April was $121.13.
Closer.
Oh, I'm sorry. The May Eventbrite fees was $14.75, June was $18.02, July was $33.25, August was $33.25, September was $26.65. I have not gotten the bill yet for October, but I went ahead and kept $33.25 to cover that cost. The PayPal fees, where everybody paid into PayPal, came to $183.92. The convention room itself, $1,864 for the 2 days we have spent. Barron's Men's VIP package to take care of all of you in those great seats that y'all had last night, $365. All of the refreshments and everything that was accommodated and helped with Barron's Men on top of their refreshments came to $75. The VIP Lone Star Cruise, $1,149.53. The alcohol and the bartender on that cruise, $323.18. The badges for this year and subsequent years, $252.49. The lanyards, $56.42. The SOTA Icon Org annual sub, $149.99, and the food that I just got through checking on to make sure it was fixed to get here, $958.26. That leaves, we have spent $5,916.04 in letters. If you would, please bring the check forward to present to Mr. Spears for the amount of,
If you would come over here with us.
yes, for the amount of $415.57.
Okay, look at me, Z. Smile, big smile, dude. Okay.
And Starr, I tried to send you a message to get you guys' account that I could directly send that money to, and either you reported me or somebody reported me for putting, what's that guy's name? The Tom MySpace guy. I put that on Facebook and told everybody on Facebook he never banned us and he didn't ever do anything, and we turned our backs on him, and now I'm in Facebook jail. So I can't send you any messages, but if you would, please get that PayPal email address to me for Portal area.
Talk to Chris.
Okay.
I'll get
Because
it.
it's all Chris now. Chris is the man.
All right.
Chris is
All
this
right.
is not mine.
Okay. Well, I will do that then.
I just want to make sure I'm 100% certain before I give you some email it ends up.
Right. No, but guys, we didn't sell all the VIP tickets this year. And thankfully, at last minute, there was some VIP upgrades and there was 2 VIP purchases. And that put us at a mark that we could comfortably say, yes, we had made a profit and was able to share that profit. So, guys, I've kicked it around a little bit about Laz don't want to talk about it, but I'm going to anyway, Laz.
He never stopped you.
This is my 5th year. This is the 5th year that I've done something like this. It's been a great honor. I love you guys. All right. Being a part of this project has been one of the great pleasures of my life. see the success of this game. And I believe way down deep in my heart that there's a special spirit in what we're trying to do here as a team, and not just the team that works on it, but the community that works as a team to put together feats like this. It's been my great honor for 5 years to do this. And I've talked it over with Laz. It's time for me to step away and let the new blood that's coming into the game take the reins if they will. And try to pull something together, to pull this community together, have a place that we can all congregate and show our unwavering support for this team that's trying to put together what I've always considered to be a miracle. Thank you all for being here. Lunch is on it, or dinner is on its way. In fact, it's coming through the door now.
Well, first, let's get a round of applause.
Yeah, thank you.
But second, I said this before when I was with the group because I didn't know if I could see everybody in here with Richard around, but I just wanted to extend, I don't even know how I can extend that much gratitude, but thank you, Richard, for entrusting this thing that is so important to the community to me. And again, we thank all of you in here who support the game. I'm optimistic we have some big changes that are going to bring a lot more community people in here, and that we can make this a much bigger event in future years, and figure out how to make that happen. I know I've talked to a number of you about some things that are coming up in terms of getting exposure to basically 20 times the number of people we have in the game is really my goal, with working with a bunch of other crowd-funded projects more closely. But again, thank you, Richard. I know that there's been a lot of effort, a lot of thankless effort. I know a lot of people in here thank you, but I know people just don't appreciate enough. So I just want to say thank you very much, Richard, and also thank you, Starr, for all the support on the project as well, and all the stuff you do. So, guys, thank you so much.
And thanks, Chris, for taking on this amazing mantle, and thank you, community, for being just incredibly supportive with us all on this journey.
And yeah, I would like to echo that too, Chris, both for you personally and as also just talk about what Zeke talked about. Thank you, Zeke, by the way, also for the amazing leadership you've shown this. And I look forward also to someone else picking up the mantle and not only doing events down there in Austin. I think something very special about doing them there in Austin. We have the property and most of the people and all that kind of stuff. But we can also think more about other kinds of ways to get together, whether they're at Dragon Cons or other any cons that people and players in our community congregate at, or obviously my place up in New York, I still go. We occasionally have Ultimate Dragon meetups in New York that I get a chance to go join. Maybe we can do those more purposefully, etc. So in any case, whoever it is that does pick this up, not only I think about is this literally this SOTACon and how to continue it, but if there are other ways the community would like to meet together and with developments, we're all ears too and happy to help out and participate in however this evolves over time. So anything we can do to support each other, let's whoever picked up that mantle and running with it, let's all work together to make it happen.
Yeah, and thank you, Zeke, for running success, and Laz, and everyone who put together this convention. And once again, not only did not lose money, but made it profitable and gave it back to us. We absolutely appreciate it. So I will actually not be Skyping. I promise I will be there in the flesh for the dance party at 7 o'clock there at the hotel.
So you're not gonna remotely do the dance party tonight? You're actually gonna be here live, right?
Yeah, I will be there live.
Well, I promise you that I will not give you a lap dance this year, so it's okay to show up in person.
Please let's not repeat last year.
I'll try to call in tonight during the dance party. I'll call on somebody's cell phone during the dance also, and I'll, we can dance together, cell phone or whatever the right term is. I'll be with my family who's here at NASA this evening, so you might get to see some of the rest of my folks that are down here in town. But I'll at least try to come in and say hello and dance with somebody who's willing to do it.
And also, Starr, I'm making sure you have to come in because I'm going to leave the laptop here because you need it for the DJ stuff, so I have to leave it here, so.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
pressure.
yeah, no pressure. Yeah.
Then I guess with that,
All right.
time to eat.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris, Damon, Starr, Richard, thank you very much. Zeke, would you please? It's been our distinct pleasure to do this year after year for you guys, and we appreciate all of you coming. So we would just like to conclude this year's event and invite you all to just clean up real quick, and then let's hit the buffet and have some food here in a minute or two. Take a couple minutes break and go do what you're doing. I'll be on board for anybody who wants me to do anything like I do here in the future, and who knows, maybe I'll twist this guy's arm into picking it up again. But right now, Zeke, you got any last words for everybody out there?
I love this shit.
No, I love you guys. That's my life.
Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we're going to be here for the dance party tonight, and enjoy yourselves for the rest of your stay here in Austin. And again, big thanks to the development team, Richard, Starr, Chris, Damon, and all the other guys who couldn't attend today. Thank you all.
Starr, I promise
Yeah.
Zeke won't lap dance you this year, but I can't guarantee anybody else will.
It won't happen.
Please, let's not.
It won't.
Or lick your head.
All right, guys. I'll leave you connected. You disconnect whenever you want to there.
Bye, Richard.
Yeah.
Bye.